All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. So we have lot many
Not many
questions here.
questions here.
Somebody's, I think, is getting a code here. So I think it'll be wonderful if in the comment you can say how many attempts you made, and then we'll kickstart the discussion. I will invite Amitendra to do the needful, and then all of us will uh, uh, take it through.
Yeah, thanks, Zijo. So I think whatever apprehension was there in the mind of the students, I think they must be really feeling relieved at this point of time. I'm sure each one of had the same feeling when we were giving the paper. We were not expecting this kind of paper actually. So just to begin with, my personal take over here before we go ahead section wise, and what students at my center also felt actually was that this was what you have been always saying, that CLAT is now reading comprehension. So today, in unlike previous years, I felt the same for every section kind of, except QT obviously. But yeah, so we have got a lot of feedbacks from the students, and of course the first impression clearly tells that unlike the previous years, considering the proportionate number of questions, this year we are expecting definitely a little bit higher cutoff if I compare it from the previous years actually. So, okay, so we have got information from our students actually. A lot of them we were connected actually, and we got the feedback from the students. So that becomes the basis for our analysis today. And obviously, all of us who are on the screen right now, we all gave the paper, and a couple of our colleagues from other locations also gave the paper. So we have not just students connecting with us, but also from the feedback from the students who were there at the examination center writing the paper, irrespective whether they were LST students or not. So we have got a good number of feedback today, and that's one of the reasons why we are so early with the analysis. I think if we look at from that perspective, I saw smiling faces altogether. Yeah, there were a couple of students I came across who were like, "What was this all about? This we were not expecting actually." So those kind of
I'm
expressions were
sorry,
there.
sorry. I think you're I think something problem with the audio. There's a lot of echo is
Yeah,
happening. So it
sure,
probably
you
will be
can
better
go
if
ahead.
you can. So it's probably will be better if we can connect to uh, a headphone, probably. So basically, like what Amitan was saying, we looked at three things: expert opinions. We obviously picked up feedback from the students, and we also one other thing that we did it. We tend to map it to the previous CLAT paper. Looked at the kind of for the level of difficulty it was there in the last 3 years. What is the kind of scores? And we did some basic. We create some basic assumptions and then looked at this particular paper and came out with a score. Obviously, this is our first take. There were obviously there would be so could be slight variations eventually. This so what we'll do is these things. First of all, we'll talk about a prediction
We'll
of
talk
cutoff.
about our predictions of now.
Again, I think it's echoing. Huh? All right. The second is to go through each of these sections, and we'll obviously take the input of each of the people who are here to give their take. And we also have a lot of upcoming sessions. We're going to discuss all the questions live, and we'll give the schedule. It's going to happen immediately after this session. So we'll kick start with the predictions of the cutoff, and I would want to kind of understand what do you think would be top three. Students can put in the chat box, and let's say that your predictions and our predictions is one and the same. I don't know, so I can see hopefully some response will happen. And then while I'm uh, going through this PPT, I cannot check the comment box, but the rest of them are actually having a look at the comment box. uh, so the basic story is this. So let me first give you what this graph is trying to say, and then we'll take the sort of the main broad input from everyone. What we believe at this point in time is for the top three, it would probably be anything above 90. And if you want to look at let's say the Bangalore kind of a college, it'll probably very close to about 100. At least one NLU, if I look at the last year's movement of scores with the last 3 years level of difficulty, and compared to this one, it's likely going to be about 65. And somewhere in the middle, if you want to hit some of the top 10, it's probably about 75, 78 ish, could even go to about 80, 82. So at this point in time juncture, we're looking at anything sort of close to 90. The reason why we looked at that is, we looked at the section English, and it was relatively easy. Out of the 24 questions, roughly about good score will be about net about 20. The logic here, we'll probably put about 16 here. Instead of 18, we'll probably look at that score like slightly going to be 16. There were probably we'll put it about moderate because there were a few confusing options. We'll discuss that in detail. Legal was, we'll put about easy to moderate. So that's certain. It was lengthy, of course, but and about 25ish is what we believe is a good score. GK for was, I think this is, we should have a separate discussion in itself about GK. It I think it was a paper which had a lot of opportunity, and was a lot of reading comprehension was there instead of GK. And quant, I believe, is going to be the game changer. This is the game changer. I was sitting in my room. Obviously, I did not. Gave my OMR sheet blank. So I was looking at, in general, you can visually look at other OMR sheets. There are a lot of people in my room who have seen the last 12 were blank. I think it was, one was slightly moderate, one was easy. This is going to be roughly about 10. If those of you who have looked at, and you had time because you had English, which is about 4 sets, logic about 4 sets, legal, I believe, about 5 sets, GK about 5 sets. So you still had a lot of time. We are so used to solving 5 sets with 5 questions each in the mocks, 5 questions each in mocks, 6 into 5 in the mocks, and 6 into 5 in the mocks. And therefore, you naturally would have time, and this sort of is a game changer here. So before I take you through, I'll quickly take feedback of each. I'll start with Siddharth. Siddharth, sort of uh, your assessment, your big picture assessment of the paper.
So I think the good part about it was there was no rush in this paper because the number of passages were less, passages were not lengthy, not many questions which we can say requires you a lot of thinking, very direct questions. And that is why you are absolutely right when you say the differentiator would be mathematics or the quant section, what we call it. If somebody has left that section, it was easy. I mean, what we have been calling out in our session, do few basic topics, and people would have cracked the quant section as well. In logical reasoning, yes, there was one passage which is debatable because all kind of answers are possible, which was on machine production. So of course we will discuss that once we come to the logical section. But overall, I don't think that there can be much debate around this paper, or the questions were debatable as there had been the cases in the previous few CLAT exam. So overall easy paper, and quant would be differentiated according to me.
Wonderful. I'll take to Suhasini. So Suhasini is our legal expert. Everybody knows her, and she looked at the paper and said, "Is it legal? Is it RC?" What did you feel? And your overall take of the paper, Suhasini? Hmm?
Okay, so before I start, I'll just read a comment from the comment section where a student had written, इसको बोलते हैं पेपर, रिजल्ट के दिन दुख आ सकता है लेकिन देते टाइम सब खुश होंगे. So that is the idea when I was going through the legal section. What I felt was everything was known. Nothing was beyond what we had not discussed. In fact, when I take the last 3 sprint session which I took on YouTube, I had clearly stated that you'll get questions on family law, illegitimate child having inheriting the property. I told them that you will be getting question on data protection. Similarly, Rahul Gandhi was in news, so you would be getting questions of defamation. So everything was very much expected that this is what we are going to get in legal, and I won't be surprised if somebody scores 32 out of 32 in legal section. There may be one or two questions where student may have got stuck. Otherwise, yeah, a score of 25 to 30 is a good score in legal.
Wonderful. And let me move to Prasan, our math expert. Well, I think that when I'm saying math is going to be the game changer, I don't think that you would have any the issue with that.
Yeah, absolutely no issues, Jijo. See, normally we divide this paper into two parts, right? We divide into the reading section, and then we say, okay, there's the GK plus quant. And if you look at the last couple of years, GK quant has been terrible. I mean, at least the last year, GK quant was terrible. And I guess this time it was the exact opposite. Um, I'll come to the quant in a bit, but when I read the GK section, it did look like a GK section. It was more like a reading comprehension. I mean, for a change, you could just read the passage and get a lot of answers from there. So I'm not too sure whether the brief given to the guy who made that paper was correct. It was supposedly on knowledge, checking the knowledge, but I think it was more of RC. So I think most people would have done well in the GK part. As far as quant, yes, I think it boiled down to how much time people were left with for quant. Because I met a lot of kids who said that, look, the sets were easy, but I did not have the time to do both. So yes, one was very easy, one was moderate. If anyone had 15 minutes for math, I think getting a full 12 on 12 was doable. Maybe for some people who are not very fast at calculations may require a little more time, maybe 17, 18 minutes, but 12 on 12 was doable. I don't think there was a question which was a straight leave question. Not a single question which I could say was a leave question. So yeah, all in all, I think the GK and the maths both were surprisingly very easy. The key will be how much time people have given for quant.
Basically the difference is this 10 is here, not doing is here. Basically is that. Okay, and goofing up some part would also get there. So that is sort of the story. Wonderful. And I'll go to Rahul, and I'll write it here. And so your take. Rahul is an expert across. So I'll take Rahul's take on this paper. Rahul.
Right. So I think a lot of it has been covered by the other panelists. I think the first thing is that time management is going to be the key, right? So something that Prasan mentioned. So if you didn't have time to do quant, which some of the students obviously, again, Jijo pointed out, did not attempt quant, and that's going to be a problem. Now, why would time management be an issue? Because wasted time for two reasons. One, because choices were closed, but some choices will be closed. So mainly in the critical reasoning section, the LR section, there were choices which were closed. Sometimes questions don't appear to make sense. I think there were about 3 to 4 questions which were probably poorly drafted, if I will not outright call them as mistakes. But the issue is these keep coming in CLAT. You have to ensure that you don't waste too much time on that and keep moving. Right? There were also one odd passage in legal which is a bit lengthy. But if you had managed your time well and then typically spent time, the other is, did you practice quant? I think almost all the mentors across CL have been saying again and again that quant will be important this year. Yeah, we've been telling people quant is important. Make sure you practice it. Don't give up on quant. And hopefully enough students have listened to us. Because if you don't have that practice, what Prasun says is 15 minutes, you may not even be able to do it in 25. That's where the problem is. Because you've never done quant because you thought, I'll never have the time anyway. All of a sudden you have the time, you don't know what to do with it.
Wonderful. Amitendra, before we move to the section, I'll take your input as well. I think your audio is an issue. You have to do something.
Just give me a moment.
All right. So while Amitendra is going to set up the audio, we'll just move on. Let's go to each of the section. Once again, we'll go through each quickly. We'll start with general knowledge. My question was it RC? Was it GK? Anyone wants to give a thought in terms of how we felt about this section, and then we'll take the.
So Jijo, here I would.
And again, I think
yeah.
it's still echoing.
Okay, so I'll just give me a moment. While continue with the other panelists, let me check the issue.
All right. Anyone want to give it a shot with respect to? Let me first talk about my sense of GK. So the sense of GK was, I think one good thing that I saw in this particular test is that the current affairs were on prominent topics. all the three current affairs question was on topics that everybody would know. The questions within that particular topic were also not very painful. It did not get too much into the depth of it. So someone who has got a general so someone who had general reading case, and I think it's still echoing. Okay, I don't know what's the problem.
I think we
Okay,
need everyone else to be on mute.
I think somebody's going. Okay. So so there is so that would be sort of one issue. But I was absolutely surprised to see a few RCs. So which is why this time around people who have been, I know the extent of effort that people have put in terms of preparing for the GK, and I'm sure that I would not be surprised if somebody is getting almost all these questions correct. Even the question which required a little bit of general, I felt that a couple of passages which was on sort of some Purana event, but answer was there in the passage. So net, so this was the difference. We've been saying that in the last couple of years, when you look at, so if I just want to give you a sense, if you look at the last year, when you look at the reading section, which is the English, logic, and legal, all the three put together was about 100 questions. You have got your GK, which is about 35 questions, and QT was about 15 questions. If you generally look at the last year's top colleges, let's say the Bangalore story of 100 plus as a score. Typically, we can see that this is about 80% accuracy out of this reading. This just did not happen last year. This was a good student would have hit about 15. And last year, Quant also had a few tough questions. That was about 5. So that was adding to this 100. What we saw this year, so it's about 80% here, close to about 40% there, close to about 30-40% there. What we see this time around, I think something that Prasanna has also said, is that reading would still remain probably 80%, maybe more, but this percentage would definitely increase, and this this is likely going to be remain the same, a 50% increase. So here GK will improve. One other thing, of course, is that if the paper is easy, it's going to be easy for everyone. So every single mark is going to count. So every single mistake is going to be problematic when we have a paper like this. When the paper is easy, it's going to be easy to every single person. So if somebody missed out on certain passages, so here one had to read a passage to answer a question. It was like solving a GK. If you're not manage the time, well, you're going to have a problem. But overall, I think this was one of the sessions. Someone maybe even feeling that मैंने इतना fight मारा GK के लिए क्यों नहीं आया questions. And the kind of question that I've spent so much time preparing for this particular section, I probably would have spent 7 hours, 8 hours. Then eventually, this is what happened. I'm happy, but deep down, I'm also sad. I think I'll not be surprised if someone has that feeling as well. So with that, I will leave it to.
Can I come in? Jijo, can I come in?
Sure, Prasan. Yeah.
So, so when I looked at so my take is that there will be a fundamental shift in the top 2-3% of the scores in GK, right? But the key would be for students who have been a little smart not to take a lot of stupid guesses, because it's a high scoring paper. You don't want negatives. So I think the smart ones have left out. Am I audible, Jijo? Because I can't see you.
Yeah. You are.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So yeah. So the smart ones, I spoke to a couple of really bright students who are doing well in the mocks, and the good thing was there were a couple of questions they were not sure about, and they left them. Right. For example, there was a question on which war is this war similar to, and there were a couple of wars which were there was a logic for a couple of wars to be there in the answer, and so a good thing would be to leave out and not get into negatives. There was a question which was on General Dyer's dad's name and his full name, which reminded me of the Zelensky thing. I think that's becoming a habit now of asking people's full names. But I guess we need to have a chapter for that now for next year, right? Lots of personalities with their full names. But I thought overall, I'm not too sure about the quant shifting massively. But yes, I think GK, there will be a massive shift in the score compared to last year.
Yep.
So not only that question, Prasan. In fact, a couple of question I could say. One was still a confusing one. Like and what you said is right. There are a couple of questions. I think the smart move was to leave it actually, unless you are very much sure. One was that what you mentioned, the full name of General Dyer. I'm sure that is something which most students, even the intelligent ones, would have skipped actually, because nobody would have recalled in that way. The other one was the countries which touch the surface of the moon. So the clear confusion would happen around USSR and Russia actually. So that probably these two options would have created that confusion. And somebody who had not done well a very thorough understanding or learning the names and all. Like for example, when you talk about the moon lander and the rover, they gave Pragyan and Pragyan 2 actually. So that could have been. So there were a couple of the such kind of questions. I think overall, definitely a very different kind of paper. And as we all are saying, it seemed more like an RC. But these were some of the traps, I would say, where I think if you're not very sure, there was no need to attempt even those questions actually. Excitement was there actually to look at those questions. And we did covered, I would just like to add. So all the students who watched the CLAT sprint, my videos on YouTube, the 4 videos which I did, of course, these were not expected when we were talking about constitution and the other one, this Jallianwala Bagh massacre. But whatever questions are asked, except for these particular names or confusing ones, all of that had been covered. So I'm sure they found it pretty easier, and that is one of the reason why they are excited but surprised at the same time.
Yeah, wonderful. Just move on to English, and in English, I want to start with one thing. There was this one question. I think it was protagonist's description of the nestling screams and shrills and maddening shows that I read the passage thrice, but Nani, what was
Nahi.
it?
I think, Jijo, what would have probably happened is
Uh,
that they accepted it from a longer part,
huh.
and they made the questions, then edited the passage into a smaller passage, and they missed out that. So, yeah, small things that you don't expect somebody like the consortium to do, but it's a workable question because you by then you understood the nature of the protagonist, then and you can eliminate the choices. So it's a workable question. That's it.
So one of the thing that you had passages which is about 200 words length. You also had passages about 400 words length. One of the thing was there were 4 passages. So a lot many people are saying that they do not have time for this particular paper. I don't know what they are saying, but it's okay. And I'm sure that everybody had a different experience. There were many straightforward questions, very discernible options. I think one of the passages sounds like ये मतलब school में करता था ना ऐसे वाला passages. The list of lot of books and किसने who wrote which book. And those were the scenario. I'll probably take input of Siddharth and Rahul on this. Your take on this particular section. If there's anything specific you want to talk about the
I think
section.
just
Yeah.
a couple of things. I think one is, as I talked about strategy and time management. When you notice a section which is fundamentally easy, one has to see if you can speed up and save time, which can then be used elsewhere. So I think that's important, that once you notice that this section is easy, you probably should have said, look, I can do this in 15 minutes or 20, and then save that 5-10 minutes and use it elsewhere. Second, the very direct questions. So pick the answer from the one is you probably will remember half the answers. Those you don't remember, you can go and find it very, very quickly. So that I think is an important part, that you save the time. The last passage uh, uh, in my booklet, which is the crisis of justice. I think that's probably the only
Yeah.
one which required a little bit of thought or pushed. Everything else is
Correct.
very straightforward. I doubt there'll be any debate on any of these questions also. We will cover it in detail, but I don't expect too much of debate happening here. And yes, anything less than 20, you probably should say that you missed out.
And Siddharth.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with what Rahul sir has said. So nothing much to add. It was very simple section.
So you hang in there. I think I'll take you in logic. Okay. Uh, so logic felt easy, but eventually it was moderate. One was there was so I'll let Siddharth take over the logic section. Siddharth, over to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was one set on the decision making, or what we can say in the passage. There was this manufacturing breakdown, the machinery breakdown one, in which debatably there can be possibly two different route that one can think of. What could be the root cause, and then the route you choose, you will mark the answers accordingly. So out of those 6 questions, two were easy, two anybody should have got right, and there was no debate about the 2 questions. But remaining 3 to 4 questions, depending upon what you have identified as the root cause, and both can be the root cause, you can end up marking the different options. So those 3 to 4 questions out of 6, I will say people should get 3 right at least. So that's why we are saying that this passage makes it slightly more the moderate logical reasoning. And then there were few questions here and there in couple of passages which we feel were not framed appropriately. We have made an inference on what a question is trying to ask us and then answered. Apart from that, there were the passages were easy. I think one passage on word that could have caused a bit of trouble, a very small passage, very small, maybe 100, 120 words passage, that may have caused a bit of trouble in terms of understanding. But the questions were easy. Elimination worked in most of the questions in logical reasoning. So one set, 6 questions of one set, people could have got 3 right, 3 wrong. Then there could be a couple of questions, mistakes they would have committed in the other passages. That's why we are saying that 18 right, 6 wrong could be a good score in this logical reasoning. Anybody who has got 20 plus is, of course, excellent. It depends on what CLAT thinks is the right answer of that particular
Yeah.
set of 6 questions.
Eventually, I think that another game changer will be this particular passage on decision making.
Yeah.
I think there were
Yeah.
3 questions back to back stem from a fundamental logic that you start with. किसको गाली दूं, machine को दूं कि public को दूं कि competitor को दूं, and then from there
Yeah, if I
uh, yeah yeah
if I can
yeah
just add
yeah
2 points here, I think
yeah
one
sure.
is exactly these kind of questions that I was talking about. I'm okay if you get it wrong. I'm okay if you get a few wrong. What I'm not okay with is you waste too much time on it. And that is the biggest fear that I have with students, something that we keep telling them that, look, there will be questions where you're unable to decide. Either leave it or take a call, but either way, keep moving. And that's the important part to look at here. The other, yes, is elimination. I think their Gijo's beast strategy is something that would have really, really come in useful. There are probably about 10 questions there where you probably can't pick an answer. It's much better off using the elimination strategy.
Yeah, wonderful. So this is there would be, so if at all the issue, a little bit of issue, I think logic, but otherwise it was manageable. It's just that like what Rahul and Siddharth was saying, a few questions had an issue, maybe that one passage had an issue. But the thing was, yeah. So that's all the passage was not lengthy as well. I think probably barring maybe one passage slightly long. So you had time to read. One was dense, the word one, but more or less people have been preparing for the CLAT, who've written so many mocks, and almost all the mocks, most of the logic questions were really painful, much more difficult. So you would have probably found this manageable, is what we feel. So let's go to legal. I'll ask Suhasini to take us through this section.
Okay, so if I look at all the 5 passages, it if you look at like the first passage is talking about family law, like from my set, inheritance right, which was a very recent judgment of Supreme Court. So this was very much expected. Secondly, if I talk about digital data protection bill, so this was so much in limelight because of government rolling back and then bringing it again, and because of various issues related to digital protection. So this was also a very good, you can say, and very easy passage because all the information was already known to the student. If I talk about these 2 passages, so in the first passage, 6 questions out of 7 questions were based on fact. That is, you have to look at a fact and then you have to answer. One question was like an RC question, information based question. Similarly, if I go to the second passage, which is talking about digital data protection, again here 3 questions were based on fact, and rest 3 questions were information based questions. So again, it was very simple, just talking about if government is, government was basically exempted from all the repercussions which happens after the data gets leaked or data is being shot by the government. So this was again a very simple passage. If I talk about the third passage, this was a static aspect talking about juvenile justice, talking about child's right, talking about the rehabilitation aspect of criminal justice system. So if a student has read IPC, the basics of IPC, and also this passage was highlighting the aspect of increasing the age or considering 16 year to 18 years of child as an adult, looking into their perspective, looking into their mind, their thinking ability and all. So this was again after the amendment was made in Juvenile Justice Care Act after this Nirbhaya incident. So this is also a very known law. Nothing was new in this aspect. Now moving to the fourth passage, which
But
was
here all these were RC based, no? This one, I think.
yeah,
Uh,
all six questions were one-liner questions based on the information given in the passage itself, like what does cost, who all are the member of Juvenile Justice Board, then what the board will look into categorizing accused from 16 to 18 years to make them as an adult. So everything was given in the passage
well,
itself.
so I said one of the things that I found in this particular passage, all the right questions had were very long compared to the other options. This
That
was
was also there because they had just picked the line from the passage.
yeah. So I think even if let's say that I think this was even if let's say you did not have too much of knowledge, you're still reading competition based. Yeah, you're right. Okay, and then moving
Okay.
on to next one. Yeah.
Next was freedom of press. Basically, again, since 1901 is there, freedom everywhere, everybody is talking about freedom of press. And specifically, judiciary criticizing freedom of press, there has to be something talking about their rights. So this was also very much expected. There were six questions, again one liner. There was one question which was based on your basic logic knowledge. That was fundamental right, that it is not absolute. This information was not given in passage, but this was based on a common knowledge of a student. And then the
Uh,
last one was defamation.
Sorry, so Hasni, if I just look at that particular question
Yes, sir.
on fundamental rights, there was no question as such. If
No,
you
no, there
actually
was,
look at it,
yeah, there was no, the question
there
was
was no
basically,
question. They gave a
okay,
paragraph and they gave answer choices without saying what
exactly,
is it you're looking for.
exactly. And
These
then
are
last
small
one,
mistakes that,
sorry,
can
sir, yeah,
confuse
you
students.
can please.
Yeah. These are small mistakes that somehow, unnecessarily, when student is under pressure, he says, "Look, where is the question?" So these are things
Exactly.
that are probably avoidable from the consortium. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead,
Okay.
please.
And the last one was defamation. Again, because of the Rahul Gandhi incident, this was very much expected. But one thing is like they talked about online defamation, that what is being published on social media and all, and in the era of deep fake and all, this was again a very much expected question. Again, seven question, one liner, nothing, no
Maybe
factual
RC,
stuff.
na? This also RC, I think. This was also RC.
This was also RC, one liner, entirely information given in the passage itself. So overall, if I talk about legal section, if a student scores around 27 to 30, then that would also not be a surprising factor because it was very straightforward section.
Yeah. So basic reading skills and a little bit of knowledge of current affairs. I think those two combined together should have taken students through. So which actually brings us to the game changer, Mr. Kamath. I think before I start, I think one passage had cute values, 8,000. Other one with 3 lakh had a lot of ugly looking numbers. So that's the two things that I found. Anyways, up to you. Over to you, Prasan.
So yeah, there were two passages, right? One was with the 3 lakh. So in my paper, that was the first passage, the one with 3 lakh. And the second passage was obviously the cute number 8,000. But you know what? The first passage with 3 lakh had absolute sitters.
Correct.
Okay. If I were to just simply look at both the questions had both the sets had what, 6 questions each. So this was a
Correct.
dream paper from a student's point of view, right? Just 2 sets and 12 questions. Uh, I think the first set, if I were to take it, this was about 3 lakh people in the employment sector, urban rural divide, and then each of them was further divided into 3 subcategories. There were 4 questions where you had to do nothing. You just had to take the data from the set, and the answer is in front of you, right? I mean, it's like saying that it was given in the passage that rural is 48%, urban is 52%, and they are asking you the ratio of the two. As
Correct.
simple as that. So there were 4 questions which you could have done in, let's say, something like a 30 second, right? absolute sitters. And that was a passage you should have done if you had to, although it looked a little more difficult than the second one. The second one was also straightforward, I guess. The second one, I guess, was on automobiles, diesel, petrol, electric cars.
It was basic ratio,
Ca-
no? It was all cute numbers.
Basic
Second
ratios,
one.
absolutely. So the funny part was even the difficult one was so simple, right? What we think is relatively more difficult, I would say not difficult. The second set was probably a little more time consuming because at least in the automobile sector set, they made you do something. They made you solve. They made you say, okay, take the ratio of this to this, find out something. कुछ तो करने को बोला था. So again, in that set also there were three questions which were absolute straightforward. Not that the other three were difficult, by the way. They
So
were.
eventually, Pratik, you have to create this table, no? It's me. Okay, the diesel, petrol, and then I think this total is 8,000. I think everything is given.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just what you could do was, for the initial part where you had the four states, you just take the number there because the numbers were cute. I think it was 15%, 20%, 25%, or something like that. So you got the numbers, and then you had to play with percentages because they had given you the ratios. You just had to play with the ratios. Where students might waste time was to find the actual values for each of them. That would
So,
not have made a lot
so
of sense.
even for that matter, I think that if I consider one thing, so 8,000 was given. Okay,
Yeah,
20% for something that is 1,600.
yeah.
Okay, and उसका ratios बोल रहा है 5:3:2.
There were three
Okay.
ratios which was straightforward. Anyways,
So 5:3 is 8. This is what 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 correspond to 1,600. I think none of these option had a painful one, and even last one, 35%, you will get everything properly. So you don't have to calculate that. You get these three values.
that's why I
And
said, Jijo, if you had 15 minutes, I think a 10 was comfortable. And if you are banking on maths, this was a paper where you could have easily got 12.
I think just to add to that second set we were talking about, 4 of the 6 answer choices had significant gap in the answer choices. A couple of them were a little close, maybe that 862 and 886, or that 18.37, 18.73. But if you take those two out, all the others had significant gap in the answer choices. Nowhere do you have to complete the calculation. And that part, unfortunately, that is something that students, they would like to calculate to the last digit. It wasn't required for most of the questions. Also true for quite a few of the first set questions.
in fact, in CLAT 2022, I remember it's 2022, last to last year.
True.
If you look at
Yes.
one data set, is very similar to this. That it's like I think if you actually look at both the set, it's kind of fundamentally very similar. You've got x-axis, y-axis for each one. You're giving some sort of thing, and it was very similar. If somebody
So
has
CLAT
gone to
22, CLAT 22, I'll go one step further. All the three sets were similar to the two sets that came today.
correct, no? That's what I'm saying.
Fundamentally, if you ask me, all you had to do was know a bit of ratios and the typical addition, subtraction, multiplication, division.
So at the end, and then what I'm sure what is going to happen. A lot of people are going to feel really bad now because you chose not to solve it and you're blaming it on time. Okay, and it's so easy to blame it on time. I just didn't have time. But at the end of the day, when you had a paper which had got 4 sets each, not even 5 into 5, 4 into 6, right? In each of these ones, unless until you the Rahul was saying, you did not, and something that we've been barking all along in all our race to NLU as well, is that it's very, very important not to get stuck in a particular question. This was there at the end of the day. Unfortunately, fortunately, we believe that QT is going to be the game changer, and it is going to be the case depending upon which college you end up getting into. And within the top 3, I believe that eventually it's boiled down to how many questions you got correct, what kind of accuracy that you had, and this could have sort of can have sort of slight variations, but then by and large that's going to be the games. It's where you did you get carried away and wanted to, let's say, attempt all the questions and made some mistake here and there. Did you get stuck in a few questions and decided I'm going to spend my life here? And so all the small things is going to play a role here. In a paper like this, one mark is going to make a lot of difference. We have seen this in the past. No, when was it? Last time the paper was really easy. Back in which year was it? Every mark made a difference. 20, I don't know which. Purana versions of the CLAT. I think these versions, the old version when you had 200 questions, we have found so many of these papers like this where it was really easy, and then it becomes happy. I think there is no point becoming happy or sad about it because it's going to be easy for everyone. And it's now when the reality starts sinking in, you might realize some of the decisions would not apply though, but that's what it is. I'm sure that there are a lot of examinations still left, lot of national there's a lot of top universities still there that you can handle, but yeah, but all those you've done well, great. So that is the picture. Anyone wants to add anything that we missed? Let me put 16 here.
I think just we might have kind of taken up our usual role of berating students here. I think there are a lot of students who have got back to us and said they've actually done well. A lot of students who have attempted 110 and above.
Correct.
So pretty sure that a lot of students will make us proud and actually really score well in this exam.
Unfortunately, the reality of papers like this, no. Unfortunately, reality, somebody is going to be on top, somebody is going to be on bottom.
True.
You have people taking the test and they're ranking it in certain order. So it is that is what it is. I mean, there is nothing we can do and nothing we can change. But just the story, and this is going to be the story, I think. And upcoming session, I'll hand over to Amitendra to take this through and help students understand this.
We are going live now in a short while. So it's already 6:11. In next 5-7 minutes, we'll be going live with Rahul coming up with the solution of the paper today. So stay tuned on this very same channel. And we continue to bring out the live solving of each of these sections as well as the quick analysis of the paper. So stay tuned, have a quick cup of tea or whatever you want to have, a juice, and just be on the channel on lawentrance.com. So Rahul comes with the complete paper solving session at 6:15, 6:17 around, followed by Siddharth taking up the logical reasoning section, and we have Suhasini coming at 7:45 for the legal reasoning section. So, and then we have Prasann coming up with his solutions for the quantitative techniques section, and I'll come with the GK one. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Just have a quick cup of tea and grab some snacks and be there only. We'll be going live in another 5-10 minutes. Just be on the channel.
All right. So this is Prasann and that is Amitendra.
You're muted.
Am I muted? I'm good. So there you have. So it's as always a crazy paper. But whatever is a craziness, it's a craziness for everyone. But I'm sure that at least you at this point in time you might be feeling good that we have attempted not many questions. Let's hope that whatever you have done in this particular paper would bring in good news to you. And irrespective of whatever happens, please do note that there are still examinations left. And I'm focused on those things. Take one step at a time. There are a lot of the unfortunate reality that is that even though there are so many national universities, the number of seats are so limited. So, which is a sad reality of the case. Therefore, even if let's say you get into some of the top private universities, India requires not many lawyers. Requires too many lawyers. I don't think that there'll be any problem with respect to your career. It was great, and we'll continue helping you with other exams and goodbye from all of us here.
So all the best for AILET, and thank you all the panelists for joining us today.